All right, recording, it is January 14th. All right, so we're looking at the class calendar. You can pick your calendar from your choices on the side. And what I just finished saying was, welcome, I'm Judith Peckett. And as you plan this class, there are a lot of little deadlines, a ton of deadlines. And so what I ask you to do is use the calendar, use it and make it. See, can you see the calendar right now? Okay, use the calendar and look at your assignments for the whole week. Because some assignments you can't complete in one day. Like the homework might take a couple days. You might want to do the practice homework first and then the homework. Some students do the homework and then they do the practice homework a couple times just for extra practice. It's all assigned, but I'm just saying you have your choice. But here you all have turned in your introductions on Padlet, yay, and you've all done the syllabus quiz. And then tonight, chapter 1 homework is due, and tomorrow night, chapter 1 quiz is due. And then I do also want to announce that Thursday is our first extra credit event for the Business Leadership Club. Please come, and if you do come, introduce yourself to me in person. And then this might be a little early for some of you, but we have the writing skills assessment practice exams. And those are for students who are taking their writing skills assessment at University of Washington, Seattle. Okay, and we run practice exams to get you ready. Okay, and then this Friday's the last day to make alternative arrangements for your exams. So if you live more than 100 miles away, or let's say you have another class during exam time, you just work with me and we move your exam in the morning or something. Okay, so just be sure to do that. Okay, so just want to encourage you to do that. And then if you have any questions about, let's do a new share. Let's go back here. All right, can you see the agenda? If so, say thumbs up, yes. If you can see the agenda, no? Yes? Okay. So if you have any questions about the business transfer degree, please reach out to me. And because our associate in business transfer degree is your first 2 years of university, and then many students transfer to UW Washington, University of Washington, Seattle, I'm sorry, University of Washington, Bothell, and get their second 2 years of college. And so it's not automatic. You have to do an application. Some students go to UW Foster, some students go to UW Tacoma, Seattle, U, wherever, but there is an application process. But the business transfer degree at Bellevue lets you go in once you're accepted, and once you accept, lets you go in as a junior at that college. So it's a good deal that way. Okay. All right. So as questions on the homework, you can look at the practice homework, but let's just look at the homework first, because I want to show you something here. So the homework is on Wiley, and hopefully you've all gotten in by now. And then you can open the assignment, and then you don't have to start it yet, but once you start, you get a couple tries to do it. Let's see, there's the policies here. 3 attempts allowed per question, 5% score reduction after 2 attempts. Best score will be recorded in the grade book. Okay. And if you don't finish, whatever you earned up to that point will be recorded in the grade book. Okay. Okay. So then let's go back to Canvas. So this is online. It's an external application. If you want to know what the homework questions are, there's 2 ways you can go about it. One, I have a document here that shows the number. So like question 1 online is brief exercise 1-1, exercise. Question 2 is exercise 1-1. So if you open up your textbook, I'm going to go to, if you open up your textbook, you can see so these resources are just general resources, but if we launch our textbook, you can see the table of contents, chapter 1, and then at the end, it says end of chapter homework here. And here it is, brief exercise 1-1. So when it shows you brief exercise 1-1, the homework problem will be brief exercise 1-1. When it shows you problem 2 is exercise 1-1, you're not going to do the brief exercises, you're going to do exercises. So I always tell students, read the homework ahead of time so you're comfortable with it before you go online. You can go directly online, it's not a problem, but it'll make you more familiar. And another student asked me if she can have notes to do the homework. Yes, absolutely. The homework is if you were doing homework in your house, and so you had a physical book. So you can, refer back to the book to do the homework and all that. But this list of homework problems gives you the homework ahead of time, as does the practice homework, just different numbers. But that'll give you an idea. Okay. Nope, don't want that. Okay. So back to, it is Akiko, right? Did I say it right? Maybe I didn't. I can't hear you.
Sorry, I have one specific question from homework, but maybe later.
Okay, let's see. Yeah. I can't hear you. Could you say it one more time?
Yes, I have a specific question from homework.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think, like question 8 out of 12.
So question 8 on the homework. So that's
Yeah,
exercise. And the 1 refers to chapter, by the way. So here
okay,
it's chapter 2 homework and it's 2. Okay, so question 8
1.
is exercise 8. So let's look at exercise 8. All right, this one, prepare a balance sheet.
I think you haven't shared the
Oh, but
screen.
wouldn't that be helpful?
Yes,
All right. So let me back up really quick here. Okay, when you click on textbook, you're going to launch the textbook. This stuff down here is not your textbook. It's just additional help. Okay. Okay, there's your textbook. And then you come over here and you find your chapter. And you can use that list of homework that I gave you. So if you go to chapter 1 homework and close this, you will see the homework questions here. Can you see that, Akiko?
yes.
Okay. And then you can start by, here's the questions that are online. You have questions 1 through 12.
Yeah.
And Akiko is asking about question 8, and that corresponds with your textbook number homework, exercise 1-8. So now we're going to go to the table of contents, chapter 1, end of chapter homework, exercises. Now, some of the homework will be brief exercises, and it'll say BE 1-1, but the exercises are going to be E 1-1. So go ahead. So we're looking at number 8. All right. About this one, prepare a balance sheet.
Yes.
Okay.
So I will prepare the balance sheet and one of the liabilities.
What's the question?
So I think it's like you need to input all the number to the actual balance sheet in the below.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the liabilities. So I was confused about the one of the the depreciation expenses. Because one the empty column it doesn't fit all numbers of the list.
So
So
this is
why?
so it's a list of accounts, right?
Yeah,
And their balance, and you need to pick the accounts that go on the balance sheet.
yes.
So
I
what
think scroll down to scroll down to you actually need to input all the numbers and then list from to the balance sheet.
Mhm.
So one of the you can see the list it says depreciation expense.
Can you see it here? Depreciation expense?
Yes, so this is only one I cannot fit in the balance sheet. I thought everything goes into the column.
Okay. So let's go
Yeah.
back to, so this is chapter 1. So let's go back to how we do a balance sheet. So the 4 financial statements. Okay. And then John has a question too about money owed to suppliers. Why is that a liability? Because, and it looks like JP, you answered it. If the purchasing supplies are costs and expenses, now that's a loaded question because we have a lot of we have something called double entry accounting. So if we owe money, that's debt. We also have expenses. Okay. So we have 4 major statements, but in this class, we're only going to work with the first 3. Okay. We have income statement. Income statement has revenue and expenses on it. All right. So there's revenue. There's a list of all the expenses, and that the difference, we subtract the expenses and that becomes profit. Okay. Okay. Retained earnings statement, we start with 0 the first year of business. After that, we have a beginning balance. We have 4 lines here. Beginning balance plus net income. If we had a loss, we would subtract. Less dividends equals ending balance. So you can see in this company, first month of business, they had a 0 beginning balance, but they did have profit of 2860. Okay. Then we subtract dividends because the problem tells you it has dividends, and the retained earnings at the end of the month is 2360. Okay. So my question is, you always have to start with the income statement first, because information from the income statement goes into the retained earnings statement. And only finally can we do the balance sheet. All right. Balance sheet has assets, liabilities, stockholders' equity, which consists of common stock and retained earnings. And the balance sheet is called the balance sheet because it has to balance. Assets has to equal liabilities plus stockholders' equity. Okay. So let's go back to your problem. End of chapter homework. Going to look at exercises. I'm going to close this down so I have more room. So what you have to do is even though it's only asking for balance sheet, that's number 3. So you have to do a little income statement on the side on a piece of paper. Then you have to do retained earnings on a piece of paper. And then once you know what retained earnings is, then you can do the balance sheet. Okay. So what accounts did you get for what accounts are part of the income statement? So everybody direct message me, DM me, what accounts are on the income statement for exercise 1-8. Okay, just direct message me. Which of these accounts are income statement? And thank you to everyone who has come today. And if you have additional questions, I see John's question. I'm hoping I answer this with this exercise?
I think I understand now. Thanks.
Does it help? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's what you owe. Okay. So everybody DM me, what accounts are on the income statement on this list? Not all these accounts are on the balance sheet. So list, and you can abbreviate them as well. JP, that is good. Let's see. I wish I had a. We've got service revenue. So let's see if we can mark this up. Service revenue. That is definitely on the income statement. And we've got cash is an asset, so it's not on the income statement. Accounts receivable is an asset, so it's not on the income statement. Okay. Let's see. Service revenue, Akiko, that's correct. John, depreciation expense, you are correct. Why? Why is it on the income statement?
Because it's an expense.
Yes. Okay. And unearned service revenue, you would think it would be on the income statement, but it's a liability. Okay. All right. Service revenue, S&W expense. I'm assuming that's salary and wages expense. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
All right. All right. I think that's it. Okay. So can somebody calculate net income for me? Pretty easy, pretty short.
Would supplies not be on it as an expense?
Eric, no, supplies are an asset. So the definition of an asset is something that has a future value and will help you make revenue. Okay.
Okay.
So
Okay.
if I supplies, let's just take an office. Supplies could be printer cartridges, paper, even paper towels, that kind of thing. They don't make revenue for you, but they support your staff who is making revenue. So
I see. Okay. Thank you.
yeah. Now, once in chapter 4, we're going to learn how when you use them up, because eventually you use them up, then we're going to transfer them from the supplies account to supplies expense, and then it will go on the income statement because we've consumed them. So,
Okay.
okay, who can tell me what net income is? And how do we calculate it? Okay, we've got, sounds close. Let's see, we've got 40,000, right? 920. And we've only got 2 expenses. That's sort of funny. 4,500 and 670. Yeah, that's it. Okay. So we've got 5170 in expenses. What am I missing here? Accounts payable, inventory. Okay. That might be it. Okay. All right. So if you were to, yeah, I got that number too, 35,370. I don't know why it doesn't, I must have the wrong solution manual. I bet it's a different problem. Yeah. All right. Oh, maybe that was it. Hang on, guys. So let's figure this out. 4,500 plus. Nope. All right. So we're not going to use these accounts in our balance sheet. Okay. So that means we don't have to consider them. So we're going to put the rest of the accounts in asset, liability, stockholders, equity order. Okay. So it's going to be, what is the order of the balance sheet? What account goes first? We're going to have cash. And then what comes after that?
Account receivable.
Accounts receivable. And then, so let's go down and categorize these. So accounts receivable is what? Asset, liability, or stockholders' equity?
Asset.
Okay, so I'm gonna put the asset in blue, and you already said cash. What about accounts payable?
That's a liability, right?
That is a liability. Oops.
Yeah.
So let's do a liability in red. What about interest payable?
Also liability.
Yeah, so what's the pattern there, John?
They all got the word payable after them.
Yeah, so um, you asked about what was your question, John? It was suppliers. So was that accounts payable that you were asking about?
I think I was asking why the word counts as a liability rather than an expense.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So when you buy something, you get the item.
Hmm.
So maybe you bought equipment, but let's say you haven't paid for it yet. You're going to pay in 30 days. Then it's accounts payable. Or maybe you sign a formal note with interest on it, then it's notes payable. Now,
Okay.
what is common stock? What kind of account is that?
Would that be an asset?
Nope.
Equity.
Stockholders' equity. Yeah. So I'm going to put that in green. And then what about inventory? What kind of account is inventory?
Asset.
Asset. Again, assets are blue. All right. How about supplies? We already said that's an asset. I'm going to come back to this one. Salary and wages payable. What's that?
Liability.
Yeah. So same logic, right? It's got that word payable. So that means our employees have worked for us, but we haven't paid them yet. Okay. And then what about equipment?
Asset.
Asset.
Yeah, the asset. Why? Because we use the equipment to make revenue, to make sales. Okay. Now, last one is unearned service revenue. Okay.
Liability.
Yeah, and that one's a tricky one, and that's one of the few liabilities that doesn't end in accounts, doesn't end in the word payable. All right. So what it means is your customer prepaid you, the company, customer prepaid the company for future service. We do that when we buy an airline ticket. Okay. We buy the ticket, we pay $300, $400. Alaska Airline gets the cash account goes up, but they don't get to call it service revenue because the travel is in the future. So they owe us the trip. So it's unearned service revenue. They owe us this and it's a liability. Okay. So to do this problem, you would go back and look at, so you identify first what category they're in, asset, liability, stockholders, equity. You list all the assets in their proper order. Then you list the liabilities in their order. And then you list common stock. And the problem doesn't give you retained earnings, so you have to back into retained earnings. Okay. So the way you get there is you say retained earnings is going to be equal to liabilities, assets minus liabilities minus common stock equals retained earnings. Okay. But before you do this problem, I would open up your textbook and look at the actual balance sheet that we were just looking at. And I would use that balance sheet to help me. So I'd put cash, accounts received, put it in this order. And I would put inventory here or here, okay? And then the problem doesn't give you retained earnings, so you have to subtract to get to it, okay? Does that help, Akiko?
Yes, thank you.
You bet, you bet, yeah. Right, okay. So those are the big things that I wanted to talk about today was the statements. So let me pull up. Let's see. On the PowerPoints. Oh, my computer is very slow today. We've had a series of issues. All right. All right. Let's go. Close this. Let's go to units and modules.
I have a quick question about the chapter 1 practice homework.
Sure.
So it says it's due February 4th. So can I do it anytime between now and February 4th and like do it before the exam as kind of like practice and still get the credit?
Absolutely. So the way the practice homework works is it is assigned. It's very low points. I encourage you all to do it. You can do it more than once. And I put it up to the night before the test so that if you want to go back and kind of redo your homework just for practice in preparation for the test, you can do that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
All right. So let's pull this up. It says, we don't like you, Judith, today. So. All right, there we go. All right. Can you see my PowerPoint now, guys?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. All right. So, and I walk through the income statement. And a lot of this first couple chapters is you guys just getting used to all these accounts, the revenue accounts. And some of your homework will use language like, I like service revenue for anything that's labor related. So that could be consulting, that could be a repair shop where they repair something. That's all service. It could be a lawyer. That's all service. It could be physical therapy, massage therapy, any of that. That's service. So that's all service revenue. Sales revenue is when we sell actual product and we'll have inventory. We're not going to deal with inventory as a journal entry until chapter 5. Sometimes they'll use language like earnings, consulting fees earned, commissions earned. Don't be fooled by that. That's still revenue. If you were the Mariners or the Seahawks, you might have ticket sales. You might have merchandise sales. They might be really specific on what they have for revenue accounts. But it all comes down to they're either selling products or they're selling labor time. Okay. Sales revenue, service revenue. Okay. And then all of these are expenses. And the expenses have the word expense on them. There's one expense in this class that doesn't, and it's called cost of goods sold. And we'll use that in chapter 5. Okay. So a lot of what you're doing in chapter 1 and 2 is just getting used to all these accounts and getting an understanding of what they mean. Okay. All right. So in the chat, tell me A, B, C, or D, how is net income calculated? Direct message me though. Perfect. Yes, thank you. And you can do this on the PowerPoint, so I'm not gonna walk through this, but essentially we're saying go to the question, prepare an income statement in the proper format. Feel free to use the book. And so again, you've got expense, 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 revenue. Okay. And of course, for every statement that you make for me, income statement, retained earnings, and balance sheet, I want to see 3-line title, name of the company, name of the statement, and then for income statement, it will be for the year ended or for the month ended. It's for the period of time. Okay. And we list revenue and then expenses here. Okay. For retained earnings statement, it's a very short statement. Like I said, 4 lines, but you can see those 3-line title. It will also say for the month ended, for the year ended, like that. Okay. Beginning balance plus net income minus dividends equals ending balance. All right. And then finally, for the balance sheet, it doesn't say for the month ending, for the year ending. It's a point in time. So income statement, retained earnings, or for a period of time, balance sheet says how much cash does the company has as of this date. Accounts receivable, what's the balance in that as of this date, and so forth. Okay. All right. And then we talk a little bit about what are assets, what are liabilities, what is stockholders' equity. So these are some of the accounts you guys have studied so far. So be aware that that unearned revenue is going to be under liabilities. Most of the accounts under liabilities are going to say payable. Once in a while, they'll use the term debt, long-term debt. Debt just is another word for payable. It's money the company owes. Okay. And cash flow is also in chapter 1, but we don't really use it. What you need to know about cash flow is it answers these questions and it's the different sources. So at the beginning of the chapter, the book and my PowerPoint talks about operations, investing, and financing. So financing is how money gets into the company. You either borrow money or you have a bunch of stockholders who buy in. Investing is typically the equipment, buildings, land that a company buys. Occasionally, they'll do other things in investing. And then, I'm sorry, here it is. In investing, they'll buy a piece of equipment like a van. And then operations is your income statement. What were your sales? What did you buy for short-term assets? That kind of thing. Okay. It's kind of like us. We go through and we say, it's Friday, we have $100 in our wallet, and then Monday comes around and we have 20, and we say, what did I do with that $80? That's a cash flow statement. Okay. All right. So the other thing I really want to impress on you, and it is in the course pack, you're not required to print the course pack, but it's understand the algebra behind all of this. Assets equals liabilities plus stockholders' equity. So if I give you assets, I give you liabilities, you should be able to calculate stockholders' equity. Okay. And of course, we did the balance sheet. All right. So I want to give you, if you have a minute, I want to give you a quick problem. And let me go here. And it's an algebra problem. So what could be more a fun way to end this? So let's do review sessions. Here we go. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So this is a typical algebra question. So where you see BOY there, that means at the beginning of the year, the company had $800,000 in assets, $500,000 in liabilities. And then the question is, what was stockholders' equity, right? So you should know by the end of this chapter that stockholders, if you have a missing number, it's got to balance. So therefore, stockholders' equity has to be equal to 800 minus 500. Okay. All right. Now, down here, if I say to you, okay, that's great. During the year, if I said to you, during the year, assets went up an additional $150,000, but liabilities went down $80,000. What happened to stockholders' equity? So this one row has to balance, okay? So minus 80,000 plus X has to equal 150,000, okay? So in the chat, tell me what X is. Even though I erased it in front of you, let's see if you know how to do it. So we have two answers. Anybody else? Akiko?
Sorry.
All right. Okay. Okay. So we have assets of 150,000. And this is just the activity. This is not the balance. This is the activity. So we had a bunch of transactions and we increased our assets by 150,000, but we decreased our liabilities by 80,000. So that means net we decreased. Okay. So what does X have to be in order for X plus minus 80,000 to equal 150,000? Okay, some of you have said 70,000. X is 70,000. Okay. 70,000 minus 80,000 is minus 10,000. It does not balance to 150,000. Okay. So that is not correct. So Eric, yes. So how did you do it, Eric?
I just added the 80,000 to 150,000.
Oops. So, okay. So that's essentially what this says. 150,000 is equal to minus 80,000 plus X, okay? Now, using algebra, we want to isolate the X. So we add 80,000 to the right side, and we add 80,000 to the left side. And we get 230, and that equals X, okay? So if we say 230 here, 230 plus a minus 80,000 equals 150. Okay. So just really start being comfortable with the algebra is what I'm saying. So if I asked you guys then, and if I said, what's the end of year balance for assets, liabilities, and stockholders' equity, could you give me that? And I'm sorry, I'm running over a little bit, but I started a little bit late. So what's the ending balance for assets? What's the ending balance for liabilities? What's the ending balance for stockholders' equity?
So assets will be 230,000.
How did you get
If not,
230?
sorry. During, so 150,000.
So end of year, so you have to take into account beginning of the year. plus the activity during the year. So it's going to be 950.
Hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
And that's going to be equals
420.
420, correct? Plus,
530,000.
exactly. Okay. So if the problem asks you, what's the balance at the end of the year? It still has to balance. So it still has to be assets 950 has to equal liabilities plus stockholders' equity. Okay. So you're going to get problems where you have to you know three things and you have to calculate the fourth, or you know two things and you have to calculate the third. And they're testing you on just knowing how everything relates together. Okay. All right. Any last questions before I stop? And if you have anything personal or anything you don't want your classmates to know, just stay on afterwards. I have to go to another meeting, but I'll make a few minutes. So, all right.
I have a question for question 11 on the homework.
Okay. What's your
Okay.
question?
Sorry, question 10. So there are a couple of statements that I gotta make here, and I'm not sure which one should I start with, because for the income statement, there's like, hold on. So I'm supposed to start with the income statement, right? For question 10.
I don't know. Can you read the question?
Yeah. So I'm given three statements with that's left blank partially. And there's the retained earnings statement, the balance sheet, and the income statement, basically. And then um, I think I know I'm supposed to start with the income statement, but um, yeah, I'm just not sure where to begin with. I'm sorry.
Do you want to share your screen?
Yeah, hold on, give me 1 second.
So it says, okay, I see it. And it says, here are incomplete financial statements for Donovan. Calculate the missing amounts. All right. And it says you must calculate common stock and retained earnings. It's also giving you income statement and it's also giving you the retained earnings ending balance. Okay. So what order do we do statements? So it's kind of being tricky. It's giving you balance sheet, income statement, retained earnings. What's the order for the statements that we have to do? What goes first?
Income, right?
Yeah, but you have two unknowns, so you can't solve for that.
Right.
So do you have and the balance sheet has two unknowns, so you can't solve for that either. But retained earnings only has one unknown.
Oh, I see.
So you can solve for that. And
Okay.
then once you know net income, you can put it in the income statement and solve for cost of goods sold.
Mm,
And then if you know retained earnings, you can load that into retained earnings and calculate common stock. So does that make sense?
yes. Yes, that
Perfect.
makes sense. Thank you.
But this is great. I'm glad I did that algebra first because you have to know how everybody relates together. So, all right.
I see.
Okay.
Thank you.
I need to run to another meeting. If anybody has anything personal, stick around, but that you don't want to say in front of your colleagues. So otherwise, I will see you maybe next week or anytime in between. I'll have office hours tomorrow at 11. So I may be late tomorrow because I'm doing an observation. So I may have to move it out an hour. I'll send an email if I move it out. Okay. All right. Goodbye.
Thank you,
Akiko,
Judith.
Thank
Kendra,
you.
John,
Thank you.
JP, and Eric, who already had to sign off. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.